Welcome to Television Sydney News. I'm Bianca Martins. It's great to have you with us. In this week's bulletin, the King's School community farewell a loved one, farmers speak out against a program to phase out the culling of flying foxes, and Parramatta to host Indie Film Festival next week. But first, the King's School community farewelled one of its own this week with an emotional memorial service for Thomas Kelly. The 18-year-old who graduated from the school last year was killed after he was king-hit while walking with his girlfriend in King's Cross. Kelly died in hospital of his injuries 2 days later. 18-year-old Kieran Loveridge from Seven Hills has been charged with murder over the unprovoked attack on Kelly. He was also charged with assault over several other attacks in the streets prior to and after the assault on Mr Kelly. Loveridge was arrested at the Belmore Sports Ground on Wednesday and was denied bail. He appeared at Burwood Local Court yesterday. Acting Commissioner Catherine Byrne commended officers on their hard work investigating the assault and said the arrest was a relief for the grieving Kelly family. Farmers say a state government program to phase out the culling of flying foxes and introduce netting will send orchard owners financially bankrupt. Philip and John Ram, who own a stone fruit orchard in Maroota, met with Minister for Primary Industries Katrina Hodgkinson this week to explain how economically unsustainable netting was for farmers.
The meeting with Katrina Hodgkinson was brought about to try and get the government to reverse their view that culling should end and netting should be the only means of controlling bats.
The netting program, which will cover half the cost of installing the netting but not ongoing maintenance costs, is designed to phase out the strictly regulated culling licences. Fruit crop output is drastically diminished by flying foxes.
Well, what they do is they destroy fruit, they foul up the fruit, and it can get to such a level that they'll destroy more than half of your crop if you let it.
With farmers in the region doing it tough in recent years, the Rams say if they are forced to use netting, the existence of orchards will be under threat.
I feel that you'll see a very quick decline in the orchards around the Sydney Basin there, because we have the problem ongoing, but not every year. But it is necessary to continue the culling if we're going to survive.
Culling has long been a sore point with environmental groups who believe it is inhumane, but the Rams say it is actually one of the most humane methods of protecting their crops, with netting posing a number of threats to wildlife protection.
Farmers are really the ultimate greenie. You only have to look at their farms to see that. And I would say that culling is as humane as what netting is. Netting has a lot of problems, particularly when it frays, and after an amount of time farmers can't afford the upkeep of it. You get all sorts of animals caught up in it. I mean, it may not just be bats. There are lots of species of birds that will get caught in it.
Bob Ingham is selling the multi-billion-dollar business started by his father almost a century ago. Walter Ingham Jr. started the company in Casula in 1918 with a rooster and 6 hens. He died in 1950 and the business was handed down to his sons Jack and Bob. The company is now one of the largest poultry producers in Australasia, with sales this year alone amounting to more than $2 billion. Mr Bob Ingham says the decision marks the next phase for the successful ongoing development of the company, which employs more than 8,000 people. After years of neglect and uncertainty, Minto Mall has new owners and looks set for a makeover. This week, Stonebridge Property Group Director Carl Maloney confirmed that a Sydney-based private investment group had bought the dilapidated mall, but he could not say who they were. The new owners plan to refurbish the centre and are in discussions with large retail groups that wish to be involved. Owner of Minto Mall Pharmacy, John Ma, said the news was a relief for the mall's shopkeepers.
It's very exciting. Hopefully the new owner will actually do something about the mall, and will give us a little bit of, a bit more hope.
Mr Ma is one of 12 shopkeepers left in the mall, which saw an exodus of shoppers and store owners when the centre declined and went into receivership.
It's very, very hard.
The mall's former owners, Michael Kwok and Helen James, were forced to hand down the centre in August 2010 when it went into receivership. The pair also owned Miller Shopping Centre and Fairmount Resort at Leura, which plummeted in value during their ownership from $47 million to just $30 million. West Hoxton residents won't have to put up with their sewage being flushed into their backyards for much longer. Construction of sewerage connections is expected to begin early next year, and residents will be using the service by mid-2014. Sydney Water is providing new wastewater services to the area under the state government's Priority Sewerage program. Resident Jeff Goff welcomes the news and says the service was promised a long time ago. He says residents are looking forward to life without sewage smells, weeping front yards and paying fees to council. Panoramic ocean views are on offer at a new housing estate to be developed in Cronulla. Greens Hills Beach will have 161 sites, including 27 with views over Botany Bay and a price tag of more than $1.5 million. To be known as Shearwater Landing, the estate will stretch from the boundaries of Cronulla High School to Wanda Reserve. Cancer patients receiving daily treatment at Liverpool Hospital are paying more than $100 a week for parking. Janice Lowe from the Cancer Council says it's causing unnecessary stress and financial hardship for patients and their carers, and is calling on the local health district to provide free parking. Breast cancer patient Margaret Alting says she was paying the maximum fee every day during her treatment. She says people like her can't afford it but need somewhere close to park. Liverpool Council made 10 free spaces available in the Warren Serviceway car park last year and is calling on the hospital to match it. Former East Timor Prime Minister Xanana Gusmao's wife visited the Blue Mountains as part of her fundraising visit to Australia. In Kirsty Sward Gusmao's second visit to Katoomba in 4 years, she spoke to 115 people about her country's national literacy project at an event hosted by a fundraising group, the Blue Mountains East Timor Sisters. Mrs Sward Gusmao said the literacy project was part of a massive effort in East Timor to build and repair schools, train teachers and produce education material in their native language. She says the program is focusing on equal access to education for girls, who are the most vulnerable group in East Timorese society. Scientists will be able to test for diseases like swine flu, equine influenza and the potentially deadly Hendra virus at the Elizabeth MacArthur Agricultural Institute at Menangle. Premier Barry O'Farrell opened a $57 million upgrade to the Biosecurity Centre on Monday. He said it was fitting that it was located on the original 5,000-acre land grant given to Elizabeth and John MacArthur and the home of Australia's primary industries. The centre will test hundreds of thousands of samples from across Australia. Almost 70 years after a plane carrying 5 men disappeared without trace in the Burragorring Valley, a Camden resident has a theory about what happened to the de Havilland Dragon. David Funnell was a boy when the aircraft carrying 3 Royal Australian Air Force personnel and 2 United States Marines went missing en route from Darwin to Melbourne in April 1943. It was carrying a cargo crate, which Mr Funnell believes may have contained uranium for shipment to the US. He thinks there was a cover-up and hopes someone will come forward to help solve the mystery. The only outside of school hours program catering for children with a disability in the St George and Sutherland Shires may be forced to close because a request for $7,800 in funding was rejected. Justin and Jodie McIntosh, whose son Eamon uses the service provided by Sylvanvale, says it's bureaucracy gone mad. The couple, who both work full-time, say it's very frustrating considering it is such a small amount of money. The services manager says it fills a vital need in the community and does not make any money. The desire for a skateboard park in Ermiton is bridging the generation gap. Ermiton Action Group is working with local youth in a bid to keep them off the streets and out of trouble after some unfavourable media coverage in April. The group is campaigning for a skateboard park after a survey of high school and primary school students rated it as top of their wish list. Action Group President Hugh Viles says a skateboard park would give some prestige to the area. The group has lodged its request with Blacktown Council for consideration. Mr Viles says he encourages other action groups to follow their lead.